Welcome.
Hello and welcome to OzLoL Podcast episode 57. My name is Carrot Colossus. I am host of the show and we are live on twitch.tv/tforce podcast with the cameras for the very first time. So welcome along to actual visuals, which is better from, and actually we'll tell you when we're talking as opposed to before when you just had to assume that we were talking. Alright, we've got a great show to talk about what's happening in the Oceanic scene with the EB Expo having happened last weekend, and with Worlds happening also. To do that is one of our regular hosts, which is VespQT.
Hi friends, I can get to wave now, and I actually waved every week, and so it's actually nice for that to mean something at this point. So yeah, big thumbs up to the camera initiative. I'm a fan.
Yep. And we have Stephen joining us in the bottom corner there, sad that he's not here. He's currently, I think he's on his way to New York tomorrow, so he's going to be away for the next couple of weeks. So, but he's still joining us in spirit. Yeah, what a jerk, really. But to fill in, and is a shoutcaster in the Oceanic scene, as well as actually internationally as well. And that's Rankonius. Welcome along.
Hello, thanks for having me.
All right, now, don't forget all the website, which is OzLoL.trinityforcepodcast.com. There you can get all our previous episodes. You can get all of our social media links and all that kind of stuff. You can donate to the show. We also have the Oceanic Battle Arena, which started again last week. We'll be back on again this week, which will be myself and Miss Fish, and hopefully I'm going to get a special guest on to help out with that as well. You can also check out, this week, I was on the Trinity Force podcast for their episode 200, which had 12 people on, which was a bit chaotic.
So disappointed I missed that one. Lousy work.
Lousy work, yeah. Basically, they tried to fit on everybody they could, and there was myself, pretty much all the LCS rundown guys, plus a couple of the producers, and obviously the regular T-Force crew. So that was an interesting show. We talked a lot about Azir and Renekton versus Cho'Gath. I don't know why, we just did. Apparently, that was an ongoing, heated topic. So
I see the support builds coming out from you on Twitter all the time for Azir. So
yes, it was. I got to say, I'm not particularly complimentary towards Azir as a support champion, but it was a lengthy discussion. So
he has so much utility. The trampoline thing that he does with his that's amazing.
If by utility you mean get caned all the time for being super squishy, then yes, totally. Absolutely, awesome. Heaps of support. So make sure you check that out. TrinityForcePodcast.com for all the other shows.
During Champion Select. That's his secret passive.
Say again?
His secret passive is piss off team members during Champ Select. So
yeah, that's it. That's
what he brings to the
drives them to despair.
And then
it's
like
a worthy strat.
Game where it's like kitty cat bounces off wall repeatedly.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool.
Anyway.
Now, I think that's it for show news. Now, before we get into the actual discussion, since we have a new person on joining us for the first time this week, which would be Rankonius, we do the standard thing, which is we rank Scott. So, as your name, Scott. What is your favorite lane, and who is your favorite champion?
Okay, so this one's a little bit interesting. I kind of have two different answers. When I started playing the game, top lane was my favorite lane. Now I'm an AD carry main, and Kog'Maw is my favorite champion. Now, to play, however, my favorite champion in general is a toss-up between Jinx and Vi. My fiance is sitting next to me, and she did a cosplay of Officer Vi at Gold Coast Nova, which was months ago now.
Nice, wow.
Respect, that is cool.
That is cool.
Pixar didn't happen, by the way. So
I'll link. I'm finding these.
All right, well, there you go, Twitch chat. You can have some pics there. Right. And for those of you for people out there who maybe don't know who you are, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what you're up to, and who you work for?
Okay, so I'm a shoutcaster for League of Legends, soon to be Strife, Smite. Gonna have a crack at Dota, gonna have a crack at Counter-Strike, gonna have a crack at COD as well. But League of Legends is obviously still my main game. I've been shoutcasting for a year as of about a week ago. So that's something that happened. I also work for, was one of the two founding members of CastOz, a casting organization thought up by myself and my lovely friend OCG Jubilate, better known as Raw or Your Caster. And then finally, I'm a general manager with Avant-Garde, so I'm basically the manager, one of the managers in charge of all the managers. So I do a lot of the administration and running around and getting everyone sorted so that they can organize everyone else.
Cool. Sounds like it all keeps you pretty busy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Do you
No
have
time
like
for
a job and stuff outside of that? Like, how do you fit everything in? Like, that's a huge amount on your plate.
Yeah, it is a lot on my plate. So currently I don't have a job. I moved to Melbourne in actually 2 weeks from now, so it's like the weekend before PAX. So I'll have to get a job then to obviously support ourselves once we move down there. But I got some stuff lined up, hopefully, that'll allow me to do both in tandem, which will be really nice.
Cool.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's get into some discussion for the actual game. So well, firstly, worth noting, as of it's going to be Friday morning at very, very early hours. There is going to be the patch 4.18 is going to be arriving. So there's a good chance that actually at some point during tonight's show they'll actually post the patch notes, which is really handy when you try to have a discussion where you talk about patch notes. So
Totally.
we'll be probably talking about that next week. It looks like it's definitely going to be Scion. And they'll put out the champion spotlight. So if you haven't seen that, it looks pretty awesome. So I think we'll probably try and talk about him next week, since I think we'll probably get a chance to play him a bit. And there'll be other things as well. I guess we'll find out. They've started talking about stuff hitting the PBE, so that's probably going to be coming up in the not too distant future of some of the changes they're going to be making for the preseason. So that's very exciting. But yes, patch 4.18 next week. Let's get into Worlds. So that's one of the big things that's definitely happening. So this week we had a number of games. So we had Samsung White versus TSM, Samsung Blue versus Cloud9, Starhorn Royal Club versus Edward Gaming, and Najin White Shield versus OMG. There's going to be spoilers, so be aware of that. And the results being, so this is the quarterfinals. Samsung White beat TSM 3-1, Samsung Blue beat Cloud9 3-1, Starhorn Royal Club beat Edward Gaming 3-2, and OMG beat Najin White Shield 3-0, which I was quite surprised by. Yeah, they really drilled them. So let's talk about some of the games. Both of you watched the Samsung White versus TSM. Why don't we start with that one?
Oh man, wasn't that
awesome? Solid game. I think so. Basically, long story short, it was did it go to 5 games? No, it was
4 games.
TSM. It was 4 games. Yeah, TSM won 1. Yeah, cool. But I mean, I think as you watched it though, you definitely did not get the impression that Samsung White, who are apparently the best team in the world, were steamrolling TSM. I mean, it was a very, I think, measured contest between the two teams for a lot of it. Obviously TSM took a game off them, which most people did not expect. But I mean, yeah, I think long story short, it's, TSM played, I think, spectacularly well. We hear so much about like our Korean overlords and how there's just no chance that any other team is going to be able to come close to them. I really think this was kind of like if it bleeds, we can kill it kind of moment. Do you know what I mean? Where like we saw this team playing well, but we saw TSM playing very, very well as well. Not to the same level, but still putting up a damn good fight. And I think it showed that the distance between the two regions is not as large as we always make it to be. So I think full credit to them. I think they played spectacularly well, very smart, strategic, great mechanics, great teamwork. They deserve to lose because they weren't the better team, but they certainly deserve to walk out of their heads held high. And I'm really excited to see what they bring back to the next split back in NA, because they look really spectacular at this point. So yeah, really worth watching if you're at all interested. I mean, many people are a TSM fan. If you get a chance to watch the VODs, do it, because it was a really awesome series.
Scott, what were your thoughts?
I think pretty much ditto. I think we've definitely seen what boot camping in Korea can do for teams. For people who don't, yeah, well, actually, I think it's really, really strong, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The attitude of the players towards the coaches in the Western regions is terrible. They don't respect their coaches and analysts anywhere near enough to learn as much as they possibly can for them. All the team strategies and whatnot come generally from the players on the team. Like, I've seen I forget what series it was now, but there was a series going on through the LCS where you get snippets of the teams in the weeks leading up to major games and whatnot. And TSM, you see them just sitting around chatting about their own strategies. I mean, they have Loco, and they've always had an analyst and a manager and that sort of stuff to be there and doing that. But the players themselves have been doing the conversation. So whether Loco's taken over more, which I can't say I'm hugely
I don't know about
impressed
that.
By. I'm not a Loco fan, but hey, they're doing okay at the moment. So if that changes, and what I really think the truest kind of definition of how well a coach is doing or an analyst is doing is when the team just goes on a losing streak, and how quickly he can break that, and how little the players' morale falls. If he can keep the players' morale high through that, they will snap it really quickly just by obviously still thinking that they're the best, and they'll play like the best because of that. But also just for me, it was the first two games especially, which we can get onto with Cloud9 in a second, but yeah, it's just a lot about respecting the Koreans and their attitudes towards the game, and learning and picking up a lot of that coming out of there. Didn't work for CLG, but did work for TSM Cloud9.
I think that's exactly the point, though. Like, it didn't work for CLG, and so I hear what you're saying. I think in theory, boot camping is great, and I think it obviously can bring a lot of benefit. But I don't know that we can necessarily directly attribute the success that they've seen to that, because we do have the CLG example where it was almost disastrous for them in terms of they nearly got relegated, and it was like they went best of 5 to try and keep their spot in the LCS. So, I mean, I don't know. I think, it's useful, but I'm not really convinced that it is the secret sauce that was what won it for TSM. Do you know what I mean? I think it was other things. Don't know what those things are really, but yeah, I think that there's sort of other things in the mix there as well.
I mean, it could just be one of those things that TSM finally just showed up on the day. I mean, in some ways, that's a huge factor of just on the day, do they perform or do they don't? Because, I mean, TSM have always been a pretty good team. They've got actually, individually very skilled players, especially Wild Turtle, Bjergsen, and Dyrus is really solid, known for being incredibly solid. So I guess maybe it's just one of those things that on these particular days, they've really showed up, unlike, previously.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with you, except for the fact that I think they've been showing up all worlds. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
think That's what I mean. Like the whole worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually think it actually does denote a bit of a shift in terms of their approach and their play and their potential and sort of things. So either way, though, I think it means really good things for the quality of play back in NA, which is obviously the region that most of us follow with the greatest interest. So yeah, I think it's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing the gap between NA and Korean teams narrowing further and further over time.
I mean, I guess that's been, I think we probably said last week, or well, actually the week before. Oh, by the way, should actually mention the fate of episode 55. Ralph, unfortunately, his audio vanished. So if you're wondering why I went from episode 54 to episode 56, that's why. Unfortunately, that's
this guy right here.
Yeah, blame that guy.
2 thumbs and no idea how to use a computer.
Yeah. So yes, that's what happened to that. Which I think it was the episode I don't know. I think last week we talked about TSM or just the performance of the NA teams. Oh no, actually it was the week before, because they were Group A and B. So there you go.
No, I think it's more. I would like to see more boot camping. I don't think the period that they spent was long enough. I would like to see them go over there for a month in the off season, and boot camp there then, and then take a break, and then see what it does to their gameplay. I definitely think it showed signs of what these teams are definitely capable of with the right people around them, and the right sort of styles are starting to be applied from those regions, which is it's very good to see. And being with Avant-Garde and having obviously Veritas come from Korea and now be on our team, I think that bodes well for a bunch of teams learning a bunch more. And the region as a whole, a global region, moving forwards in terms of scope and ability to play the game at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they're shaking things up a little bit with the expanded tournament and things like that. So I wonder if there might actually be more opportunity for that sort of thing. I mean, ultimately, what you'd really love to see is, rather than a summer split and a spring split, is you have just one long season, and then you have a much longer end of season period. But I guess we'll see. I mean, that would, I imagine that would allow people to, especially if OGN keep in the format they're in at the moment, where they've got like 3, you got summer, they got winter, spring, and winter, spring, and summer champions. That would really allow more opportunity for teams to go over there and play. So yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. But did you want to talk about Cloud9 and Samsung Blue, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's just the fact that Cloud9 came out and were ready to play from game one. That was amazing. None of us were expecting, that was a storm. That was utterly... I was very worried for Samsung Blue at the end of game one. But again, it shows their character as a team to be able to reform, and after such a strong game, come back over Cloud9. So that was again, another surprising result, but it definitely, for me, proved to me definitely a lot more of what the Korean teams have to offer.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch that game, but I was able to watch OMG versus Najin. So, did you want to mention anything about Starhorn versus Edward?
No, I actually didn't get a chance to watch any of the other matches. I only got to see the TSM game. I wasn't able to watch anything else for this series, sadly. Very busy this long weekend.
Like the fact that OMG managed to defeat Najin White Shield in 3-0 was actually very impressive, and they looked really strong all the way through. I don't think there was really a time I think it actually put Najin on tilt, because there was a couple of times where Save, particularly when he was playing Cassidy, was just doing these really weird, just crazy brave type moves. Just jumping right in the middle of the team to try and blow somebody up, and then just not doing it, and then getting deleted. So it was, I guess if the dominant sort of discussion is Korea is best, China is second, well, that definitely wasn't the case with these guys, because they really, OMG really brought their best out, and I think they're, well, considering that they struggled to get through group stages, they only got through on tiebreaker, you'd sort of think, well, okay, Najin was top of the table when they came out of the groups. You think, well, okay, Korea's going to do better, but no, actually, OMG it was like they were 6-0 out of group stage. So I was super impressed, and they're going to be. I think Starhorn Royal Club's going to have to really watch themselves, because those guys were just in super hot form.
Oh yeah. We have got some awesome semifinals coming. White versus Blue is going to be amazing, and then with the form of ONG. This is a dream semi-final set.
I think it's also really good, because I think if it was Korea versus Korea showdown for the actual grand final, obviously in Korea that would be great, but I think it's going to be even more interesting with the China versus Korea thing. I wish I could be there. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it in the end because the money didn't work out. But
would have been awesome.
Would have been awesome. So, does anybody want to make some predictions about who's going to win the semi-finals this weekend?
Ooh.
I couldn't say, to be honest with you. Everyone's obviously saying that White's the favourite, but I think we've seen certainly chinks in the armour throughout the series. Not throughout the series, I should say. We should really say against that game with TSM, really. Blue has always been a little bit patchy. I think OMG really just surprised with how well they did. And the last team being... Sorry, I lost my... Who's the last team then?
So Blue and White versus
Blue,
OMG and Starhorn Royal Club.
And Starhorn Royal, yeah. And you're right. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I really couldn't call it. So I think you're right. I think it's just some really close matches. I think if you had to pressure me, I'd probably say White. And I wouldn't dare call the Chinese match. I honestly don't know at this point. I think it's just going to be really open to see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see how... I'm pretty sure Royal Club actually beat OMG to go through to the grand final last year, if I recall correctly. So I think this will be a really good matchup, because it's going to basically be basically a repeat from last year and OMG. Well, they were really good against Najin, so I'll probably go with them, and I'll probably go with White as well, just because they've probably had the stronger form.
Yeah, more consistent, I'd say. Certainly, everyone's backing them.
On that note, I from memory, in-house scrims I think always go in Blue's favor.
Oh, okay.
Really, no way.
I do remember hearing that somewhere.
I never put weight in terms of scrim results. People always talk about scrim results, and you always hear stories of like, oh, Alliance beat, blah 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 in scrims, whatever else. Like, if you think about it, if I was scrimming, I would probably look to try at least one or two things that I wouldn't normally try in a proper professional match. I would probably play some some champions that I'm not used to playing as much. I'd probably try some dumber play just to see like, oh, let's just see how big we can go here. Like, I really think that that's not the actual measure of the capability of these players, especially like the difference between a good team and a great team is their ability to be focused, disciplined, rally around objectives, come back from behind, all of these sorts of things that I don't know would be tested in the same degree during a scrim, because there's just the stakes just aren't there. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely not discounting them completely, but I think certainly keeping them in perspective in terms of what is a scrim result really? Is that really something we can lean into? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I would agree with you, except they're in-house scrims. Like, if you're going to compare it to maybe a TSM versus a Cloud9 scrim, I would agree 100%. But when they're in-house, I think it's both teams going, all right, maybe we're going to try something entirely new, or we're going to go balls to the wall. I do think that they do throw a lot more in-house, and I do think a lot more weight is thrown on in-house scrims, especially between the two Samsung teams. So,
and I'm pretty sure that in at least one of the formats of the Korean professional, I don't think they actually have to face each other. I think champions they do, but the Masters, I think it is. I don't know if they actually have to play against each other in Masters. So if that's the case, then at least half of their games, they, for part of their season, they can actually scrim freely without having to worry about sort of learning each other's strats, because they actually, I think that's right. I'm happy to stand corrected, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So, but I mean, certainly, I think the Korean arrangement is quite different from how we organise outside the West. I mean, pretty much every organisation in Korea has two teams, and I think it is for the purpose of scrimming primarily. So, we'll see. I mean, I guess we'll find out this weekend. No, it's Saturday, so 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Australian Eastern Daylight Time.
Yes, 7:15 AEDT. Yeah, AEDT.
Friggin' daylight savings.
Pumped.
It's gonna be amazing.
So Saturday and Sunday, yep.
Oh my god, weekend. Oh yeah, this is gonna be crazy.
Yeah. And then the weekend after that is finals. Oh yeah, so excited.
Oh damn, I have a cast on Saturday. No.
I'm away.
No. Oh damn.
No internet.
Oh no.
First world problems.
Poor souls. Well, I'm gonna watch.
But,
all right, let's
Starhunt versus OMG.
Oh yeah.
I think that's gonna be the better of the two matchups.
Yeah. Why so?
The form of OMG, and I do see them as being the underdog, and we're Australians, so I like the underdog. We all love the underdog story.
Makes it hard for me to follow games that don't involve a team that I actually care about, because basically whoever's the underdog at that point in time is the one I'm going for, and then if the other side, if they turn it around, I actually start barracking for the other team. It's really
go Dark
good.
Passage. Go Dark Passage.
Hey, thanks. Why don't you join in the stream, my love? Okay.
Hi, Tracy.
Is this
That's my wife. That's my wife. Yeah, we've seen your somebody in the background walking around.
I have houses, a bunch of them. Anyway.
Okay. So let's move on to some discussion of the Oceanic scene. So on the weekend we had the beginning of the round of 8 for the Oceanic final at EB Expo, which Rankonius was at. We had a bunch of games, but involving Chiefs, Zero, Direwolves, and Immunity. Again, spoiler alert. So Chiefs, basically the people who went through to the next round, to the round of 4, which is at PAX Australia, Chiefs went through in the winners bracket, and in the losers bracket, Direwolves went through. So these games I actually did watch. This weekend, or sorry, not this weekend, it's actually the 27th, I think it is, October, is we'll have the other 4 teams. Rankonius, you were at the EB Expo. Tell us how it was.
It was amazing, right? First off, right, I've left their game on terms of production. They got seats into the convention center, because the last event I went to was Gold Coast Supernova, and everyone was either sitting on the ground or standing up. And my feet got tired really quickly, but this was an amazing setup. Same sort of, I believe the quality has come up again to another notch. I mean, we had interviews there. Obviously, Lamil and Elisifer went there. So actually, Atlas did an interview, and then I believe Pastry Time did an interview. That was interesting. I rather enjoyed that format. because they were operating with the 3 casters, so they had Atlas, Pastry Time, and Spawn, and Atlas and Pastry Time just rotated.
So good to hear Pastry Time cast again. I mean, I know he does it from time to time, but he is like he's such a great shoutcaster.
By the way.
Yeah. Apparently, he's still waiting on his visa.
What is that? I don't understand. How is that possible?
I don't know, especially since they had Spawn and Atlas over for some of the games in the
some like ASIO blacklisting or something against his name that's like prohibiting him from getting a bit. Like, I'm not joking. There has to be something in that.
He's gonna be shoutcasting from Guantanamo Bay. That's where they're gonna send him if he shows up.
What has this man done in his previous life to make it so difficult to get away from
They're not gonna let him through customs because he could be bringing pastry goods.
It's actually Muhammad Al Pastry Time.
Exactly.
So
totally.
I don't know what's happening, and considering that they actually had Spawn and Atlas over to shoutcast for some of the challenges, I think it was either the challenger stuff or the Oceanic Wildcard.
It was the playoffs. Wasn't challenger stuff.
It was promotional tournament. It was the promotion tournament. That's right, because they were shoutcasting with Keen when he was playing with Curse Academy. So obviously this. I mean, maybe getting temporary visas, but anyway, it'll eventually get there.
EV Expo.
EV Expo. That's what we were talking about. Let's get back to it.
That's right.
So how do you find the games?
I think it was absolutely amazing. I really liked, because I was chatting to Chenny Boy and the Zero's manager. I was actually chatting to them a couple of days before at Wang Yu Internet Cafe, because the owner guy in charge of that, Ken Chen, was actually their manager. So I was chatting to him about that, and he reckoned they were going to do really well. And I sat down and sort of said, I definitely think they've got a shot. They drew the big target
shortest of the shortest straws
straight up versus Chiefs.
Yep.
It was just like, but having said that, Chiefs at a point in both games had a 5k advantage and lost fights to 0.
Yep.
How big is that for the scene? How amazing is that? And Immunity, when they faced them after beating out Direwolves, Chiefs versus Immunity was the winners bracket sort of semi of that group.
Yep.
Again, Immunity almost took them off.
Chiefs
are not playing to the same standard they used to be. Their shot calling seemed off, in my opinion, but they just weren't as dominant, weren't as grind out. They didn't seem as patient. So whether they're falling back to the meta or whether people are catching up, I certainly feel like they've fallen off their pedestal a little bit. So this is really interesting coming out of Winter Regionals. So
I didn't catch the Zero versus Chiefs. Well, I kind of just wasn't really paying a lot of attention to Chiefs versus Zero. But the Chiefs versus Immunity game, I was both impressed with Immunity and I mean, Chiefs were good. Like, I mean, they were still ahead in most of their games. But Immunity at times, well, Immunity did take a game off them, so that's definitely to their credit. But I think you're right. It's hard to tell. I mean. Like, to what extent they're still playing. It could be that everybody else has got better. They still looked pretty good, and if you go back and look at some of the Riot did a sort of top 4 plays of the weekend, and there was some crazy stuff, especially against Zero. Like, they were just raking in the kills. But yeah, Immunity, certainly in that game versus Chiefs, they looked pretty good, and they definitely made them work for the victories. What's really unfortunate is that they went to the losers bracket, played against Direwolves and lost 2-0 and then didn't make it through. So, I mean, that was really, really disappointing. It must have been like, and I think they said on the cast, obviously it was just the mental, they just lost mental energy, or, like the fact that they had such an emotionally draining game against Chiefs, came so close to winning, and actually in game 2, so they've won the first game, then lost the next 2. In game 2, they could have won the game. And I think that's probably the main thing is that stopped them from going through, is that they had Baron, they took down an inhibitor tower and the inhibitor. There was only one person up. The Rosie on Janna was about to respawn. They probably should have closed out the game and won it. I think that's the key thing that allowed Chiefs to get back into the game, was that they didn't they didn't win at that point. And I think they really should have. I think they probably should have pushed for the win, because there was still another 20 or 30 seconds on pretty much anybody else who could cause damage. But I guess, these decision makings in the heat of the moment, especially if you're playing against Chiefs, you don't want to throw at the Nexus. I mean, we saw with Fnatic, like, you can come very close against when you're attacking a Nexus and still lose. So,
True.
You know, obviously they went to play cautiously. I mean, they still did well for the next few minutes. They picked up another Baron, but Chiefs just pulled it out and eventually turned it around. So, yeah, it's unfortunate decision making with Chiefs. And then in game with the Direwolves versus Immunity, they
were on tilt. That's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the scheduling and whatnot, I was chatting to T-Gun about it immediately after. I mean, they had 5 to 10 minutes between that first series. The first series actually ran overtime, which I think is a little bit of I'm not happy about that in some aspects, but I kind of get it in other aspects because they had to obviously be out of there by 4 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, totally.
But having said that, the first game on Friday wasn't until 3 o'clock. There was like this entire 6-hour period on Friday that there wasn't a single game played. So I don't know whether that was down to Riot scheduling. That won't happen, I believe, at Armageddon Auckland because it runs from Thursday to Sunday or something. So they've got more. They've got another complete day over at the Expo.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, no, the Immunity just didn't have enough time to recover after the Chiefs game, which was really sad for them. Like even being, you know, on AV and obviously being biggest rivals of Immunity, still you know, you gotta throw a bit of a hand out to them and just say you guys just got really unlucky with scheduling, timing of that game, and how drawn out it got because they played so well. I definitely feel like they deserve to be going to PAX over Direwolves. So I don't know. It's just one of them things.
Yeah, I mean,
one of them things.
Sorry, go off.
No, I was just being silly. Ignore me.
Okay, fine. I will. It's what I normally do anyway. So
that's your greatest pleasure. That's why
that's
you
it.
Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, just when that adrenaline, like when, you know, I've done a bit of public speaking, and so I know what the adrenaline is like. And when you sort of get to the end of it, and you just the adrenaline's wearing out, it is exhausting. So it is really unfortunate. But I mean, I guess it's good. Like considering that they didn't even make it through to winter regionals before, it's a really good. It bodes really well for them that. For the, well, you know, presumably autumn regionals next year, if they can maintain that level of form. And there's still a couple, I mean, I presume there's still probably ACL at the end of this year, maybe even CGPL, I'm not sure, but there'll probably still be another tournament.
CGPL is on the 18th and 19th. That's the LAN finals. Okay.
So, you know, there's still a couple of things they can do this year, which hopefully keep them sharp for next year. And, it is a shame. And well, Stephen, our you know, is manager of Immunity, and I'm sure he would have been pretty disappointed as well. So our condolences to him.
Indeed.
All right, well let's talk briefly about what's going to happen this weekend. So we've got Legacy versus Unlimited, and
it's not this weekend.
Oh, sorry, the future
Armageddon.
Yeah, Armageddon. That's it, 27th. So that's. Well, we'll save that discussion for before that. Actually, that's like 2 weeks away, so we'll let that one go. Let's move on to some questions. But before we do, Steve needs a costume change, so because let's do it. There we go.
Yeah.
Looking sharp.
That is actually a pic that he supplied himself.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Please. We don't think that's appropriate for the stream, and he's like, that's the best photo I've ever taken.
We should actually should point out that he's in Speedos as well. There you go.
For anyone listening to the podcast, this man is not wearing a great clothing.
Yeah, basically looking sexy. So you should check out the VOD, which is on Twitch, youtube.com/T-Force Podcast. Okay, we've got some listener questions. So I think both we've lost my spot. Okay. So first question, and it's from Gavin on Facebook, which I think is Chaos Mage.
Chaos Mage.
Yeah. In relation to attacking enemy champs in lane, trades, all-ins, harass, lane control, auto attacks, frost queens, all that sort of stuff, what affects minion aggro, and what's the best way to mitigate it? So essentially minion aggression. How do we...
What affects it? Is he asking about the mechanic in terms of how minions actually aggro onto you and how that's decided versus how they...
Yeah, well, I actually went to the advantage of
I'm actually going to bring this up so I have the exact thing in front of me. But there's like a 8-point ordering that it goes through. So...
And I reckon it works probably, it follows that 8-point thing maybe 10% of the time?
Yeah, I
based
know.
on my
Right?
experience in terms of like overall consistency with the way that minion aggro works. So I don't know. I think minion aggro in this game is like laughably bad. I am absolutely like you can definitely manage it to a point, but so often in so many critical moments, minions will do some weird thing that you didn't expect them to do, and then
Okay,
boom, all of a sudden.
Are you for real? I think it's so predictable. Like it's some of the
Oh, what?
it's
As if.
so
Oh, please,
predictable.
as if you haven't been followed into the jungle by some minion that well.
Oh
and truly
yeah,
should
okay.
have
Some
been-
alright, that
Hell.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and you're like, please stop following me. I'm trying to hide, and they're like, nah, man, I got you. Do you know what I mean? Like, or just a variety of things. Like,
okay. So that is a bit random, but I mean, we'll actually
Well, you
post.
just have this random 40 gold cannon creep walk up and start helping you with the red buff. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And you're like, hey, thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Well, okay. Well, let's go
so-
through the actual matrix and then we'll work from
Yeah.
there because that's and
There's
as
some facts in this
yeah.
discussion.
Okay. So it basically the basic pattern is it moves up the lane, attacks whatever is in front of it first, and then there's sort of an AI order. So it will change its attack order if an enemy champion designated by a call from help from. So basically, if an enemy champion attacks an allied champion, that's the first condition which it will change it. If an enemy minion attacks an allied champion, it'll move. It'll then move to attack that. An enemy minion attacks an allied minion. So obviously when they attack each other, so they go to help each other. An enemy turret attacks an allied minion. An enemy champion attacks an allied minion. So that's the order. You can Rankonius has put it in the chat in the Twitch chat, and when we put in the show notes as well, you can look it up yourself. That's the behavior, and if it doesn't, if none of those things happen, basically it just attacks whatever's in front of it. So with that, let's talk about the actual strategy of managing aggro.
Well, this is incredibly important when you go to lane swaps. And it was actually messed up by I can't remember exactly who, but at some point in Worlds, I remember Crepo discussing it. There was a Leona, and I can't remember who the AD carry was laning with them, but they'd lane swap. I think it was either a Tristana or a Vayne or something like that, and they wanted to lane swap to get away from the other bot lane. They lane swap. What you want to do with the first wave of minions in a lane swap scenario to get them all aggroed on one minion and get the 3-wave freeze rather than just the 2 waves and hit the turret, which you do actually see a lot of people doing when they attempt to replicate the LCS stats. And that's because we don't actually see champions generally doing this, because the focus at when the minions hit each other at that one sort of 2-minute point is on jungle, who's starting where, etc, etc, etc. So what you actually do in that scenario to get the 3 waves to group up before they hit the turret is you have your support walk up and tank wait until the first 3 melee creeper attacking that champion, then have them walk into the brush. So that they all target on the exact same tank creep, so that your wave loses that tank creep first. Yeah, so that's how the lane swaps are affected. That's how they get 3 waves instead of just the 2 to hit the turret at once. But then as for minion control, brush control is most important for mitigating the minion aggro, because if you go up, auto-attack somebody, say on Caitlyn, which, all Caitlyn's are going to be doing, that's their entire role, and then you don't have a ward in your brush, back into the brush. In, out, in, out, in, out. Free harass, you don't take minion damage. If they trade back in that vision line, they're going to take the minion damage as well, and you're still going to win because you got the longer range, because you're Caitlyn.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, it's so I mean that's I guess that's how you can set up. I mean, a slow push. I mean, that's incredibly useful. I mean, I guess one of the things, well, it's probably worth practicing. I mean, I know that I had a situation just today or yesterday. I was playing in a solo queue game where we should have had a lane swap. We were against Braum Caitlyn versus I was Leona and I had a Vayne. And after the game, I'm like, we should have lane swap. So I mean, that's something worth keeping in mind. I guess in terms of, how about you want to talk about did you want to bring up a point before I?
I mean, I think personally, I think in a general solo queue experience, I mean, obviously most of us are in bronze, silver, gold. My the greatest awareness I bring to minion aggro is actually with regards to a really aggressive enemy and using the minions against them when they overextend. And I think that that's generally how you're going to be able to play it to your advantage. If you see someone come into lane and it's pretty clear they're looking to assert dominance in that lane, then I think it's pretty easy for them to. It's pretty easy to sort of give them enough rope to hang themselves, if you know what I mean. If you're able to clear their minions out, focus on avoiding their harass, and then let the your creep wave, build a little bit, so it's obviously dangerous for them to move forward. You can actually look at protecting yourself quite a bit. Or, of course, you can actually look at creating opportunities for yourself when they sort of start to get too much on the offensive. So I think in terms of my lived experience, what I generally are doing is looking at this, the opposition, and saying, okay, is this person keen for me? If they're keen for me and they're looking to harass and get aggressive, how can I make sure I use minion aggro to keep them at bay? How can I keep their minion line thin enough such that my minions are going to be, there and are going to be something that they need to consider if they're going to try and get aggressive on me. It's also quite useful for protecting against ganks as well, particularly in the mid lane. It can be quite tricky or dangerous to go in for a mid lane gank if there's a considerable minion wave waiting for you there. Because it's a pretty contained space. Minions can get to you quite easily in the mid lane as compared to the bottom and top lane. So that's something else to consider as well. If you've got a fair chunk of your own minions near you, you're probably safer from a gank than you otherwise would be.
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the other things. Sorry, I just had a request for somebody for me to get naked. Hello, Voku. You're a champion in the Twitch chat.
Hello, Daniel.
No.
Do it.
Trust me,
Oh,
what can be seen can never be unseen. So that's pretty much forced any thought out of my mind. So if I repeat what you just said, I apologize. So in terms of minion aggro, I guess like the main thing you need to sort of really worry about is that you don't inadvertently attract it. I mean, it's really it's really critical, especially at air levels, that you obviously don't take it. But what often happens is a minion lane's pushing, the enemy bot lane's pushing up. I mean, I'm talking from a bot lane perspective because that's what I play. They sort of push in, get past the middle of the river. You have no minions. The jungler then ganks, and you have to run through all these minions to try and support the gank. So I mean, that's something that quite regularly happens. And then when you don't support them because firstly you're trying to get the experience and gold from that huge wave they've built up, and secondly you're not trying to die. The jungler gets mad and they say, "Why didn't you help?" And he's like, "Well, because so that's something that both junglers and it's probably true of top lane as well. Obviously less so mid lane. But something you need to be aware of when you're ganking is that you need to look to see where your own minions are and not to try and force your lane to try and push through this huge wave, which also has the difficulty of you've got the friggin' minions in the way, which is problematic.
Totally. Creep blocking, man. It's the worst thing
and
ever.
It's the real
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Why did you go that way when you could have gone the other way? I needed you to not do that so that this gank would be successful, I mean, generally as a jungler, I will try and engage when their creep line is low. I'll generally wait for that because especially my first gank, top, mid, bot, whatever, generally I top or mid gank first up. But, if I go in there at level 3 when there's a full minion wave that's about to arrive, it's going to make it really difficult for me to chase them to tower and tank 1 or 2 tower hits. Do you know what I mean? So I generally will wait until that creep wave is just about to clear, and then I will engage. So I'd say that's another consideration as well. You're probably more vulnerable when that creep wave is low, as I said earlier.
Almost the vision and obviously blocking. Yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much everything, I think.
Yep.
And if you want to, I play a lot of Shen, so I use the minion waves quite offensively. Like at level 1, I'm not unknown to take his shield first, just to be like, oh, you're going to harass, I'll just mitigate a little bit of damage and get that Kai strike back off cooldown quicker, and clear out his minion wave, then level the E at level 2, and then just be like, yo, you're in a double creep wave, I'm taking 60% less damage, and I've got a shield on top of that. Just for especially with Ignite, you can play some really gimmicky plays around that, depending again upon the lane.
Yep, and you can use minions just about to die, especially if they're not paying attention and they're right in the middle of a minion wave trying to farm or whatever. You can actually use that, particularly in the bottom lane where you've got a support that has a lot of hard CC. If I'm Leona, I see there's minions going to take about 2 or 3 hits left. I then Zenith Blade in, I then stun them. They're going to take maybe a second's worth of minion aggro, and that's actually a lot of damage at early levels. So you can use those waves if you're looking to see when are my minions about to die, and then engaging. Firstly, well, hopefully you're stopping them CSing, but secondly, you're also hopefully going to draw that minion aggro onto them, which is just more damage that you don't have to supply, which is always great.
Yeah,
so.
totally.
Cool. All right. Well, we got another question. I think this is also from. I'm trying to think if it was from. It might have been from Chaos Mage as well. So a question about how do junglers in the LCS manage to take their first buff with little or no help and end up on much higher health than I or other people? Is it runes, masteries, the way it's taken, or something else?
Elise is probably the most important one when considering this, because everything in the jungle, she'll get the spiders to tank, which means she actually takes no damage in the jungle whatsoever. The potions are just there, just in case she wants to put down some potential pressure, and initially just to make sure she tanks it up. But also, as soon as you start taking damage from the buff, pop a potion. That's the instant you take some damage. Because that'll get you higher, and then your second potion can kick in quicker as well, especially for someone like Kha'Zix that needs 2 potions to clear the first buff. So,
yeah, I think I know what he means. Though there's you definitely look at some champions and you're thinking, okay, cool. Why is their Jarvan taking less damage than my Jarvan? So I think that's a variety of things. So obviously LCS players can be known to more aggressively rune and mastery, especially if they're looking for early plays on junglers, which they generally are. So they probably have taken a few more damage runes than you might be used to. Similarly with their masteries, they can be a little bit more offensive. So there's certainly that to consider. The other thing is that they are typically orb walking, and obviously that is a small amount of difference, but it is something. It is something that's worth practicing because it does save you just a little bit of damage on the orb walking. Is, for those that don't know, it's when you're actually moving between your auto attacks, and it's only a minor amount of difference, but it is something. So it's worth practicing. And as well, I know on some junglers, and I can't think of any example at the top of my head, but there are some sort of cheesy things that you can do that will sort of stop the minion camps from doing as much damage to you as they otherwise would. I can't think of any examples now, but I definitely remember having seen this before in terms of if you hit them from this angle or pull them this way or stand over there. There's general sort of cheesy stuff like that. There are some examples where that can occur as well. So that's another thing that they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess juggling.
Jinx can do it. Jinx can do it. Jinx can take buffs without taking any damage.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of
high attack speed champions. What you do is you actually aggro and reset the buff before it's had time to actually reset properly. So it never actually ticks over on its reset counter. So it counters as aggroed.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can think of. But yeah, I remember definitely thinking the same thing when I started out and I was watching this. I'm like, why do I need so much more of a leash than them? You know what I mean? And I think that's really ultimately what it comes down to. There's nothing much more secret than that.
Cool. I reckon we got a question from the Twitch chat, and it's from Tassage, and they ask, question, Runa's Hurricane, I just read about it. It sounds great. Why is it never in any build guide I read? Now, if Stephen Garstone was here, he and I would both jointly relish answering this question, because we've been very loudly saying how terrible an item it is. But let's talk about it. So, is Runa's Hurricane any good? And if it is good for anybody, who's it good for?
So why do you think it's terrible?
Why do I think it's terrible?
Yeah.
Basically doesn't give you any, it's one of those items that doesn't give you any advantage you would otherwise have, and it's very expensive. So, as I think Voco pointed out in the Twitch chat, he said, for the same price you can build Phantom Dancer and Static Shiv. All it gives you is attack speed, and it does give you more, allow you to spread out your attacks onto more people. But, I mean, that's not always useful. Obviously, if Kale, for example, for a while there, it was awesome because she was just, tearing whole teams apart. Yeah. But apart from that, it's really a trap item. It's essentially better, it comes down to... Well, see, I'm giving the whole answer now, and I think if you get a chance to answer
that's cool. I have become the host.
Yes.
I can do this really cool thing with my camera. Hang on one sec.
Okay, it's essentially opportunity cost. Oh wow! Whoa! Okay, I'm getting freaked out now.
I have the Phantom Lord control panel on the side.
Nice. Essentially, it's a trap item. Like it's a thing of opportunity cost. There are better items that give you more than Ruinous Hurricane.
Ugh, Jinx, no, it's not okay on Jinx.
No.
Jinx already
Jinx
does
already has
splash
so much
damage,
attack
and the
speed.
rockets don't splash the splash.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually. It's such a gimmicky item. It works on Kale because her shred from her passive applies on the side hits, and that's why it's so good. Because every time it hits, it's shredding off more and more. Because Kale's passive is for each auto attack she does, she shreds 3% of your current armor and magic resist up to a cap of 15 or 5 attacks / 5 bits of damage. Because her Q also applies that. So that's why it's good on her. Is you can just shred everyone's resistances, and then your entire you can go Twitch Kale and forget team fighting against that because everyone's got no resistances.
Yep.
Yeah.
And everyone's just getting AoE'd to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was going to say, even just on Twitch, even in absence of Kale, it's still quite strong on Twitch because of Rat-a-tat-tat. Obviously that will proc on hit effects. It'll go through a team, and it will, it will splash that damage itself. So it can be quite viable on Twitch as well.
Because you can effectively hit 3 champions all twice with one auto attack.
Yeah.
No, wait,
yeah.
2 champions plus the main one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other champions that it might really be useful on. I mean, I'm thinking
Well,
maybe
theoretically,
Siva, but
I mean,
not
there's a few other
really.
champions that have auto on hit effects.
It's
So
gimmicky on Caitlyn. It
does
so-
it? Okay, I wasn't sure
yeah,
if it did or not.
does. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
that's-
really, really gimmicky.
yeah.
And because you want to be doing eye-edge crit headshots with Caitlyn, it's
Yeah. I mean,
It makes her
Varus.
headshot a little more consistent, but yeah, that's
Like,
about it.
Varus who puts his blighted quiver on everybody. So theoretically, you could put the passive or the stacks onto a bunch of people and then proc it with one arrow or one volley or whatever it is. But again, it's not the sort of item Varus builds works better off AD rather than off attack speed. You could build it on an Ashe because it'd proc her slow, but again, you're better off with it's just better items. It's just there's nothing on it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're going to get a lot of attack speed from other items anyway.
Yeah.
And you'll obviously have runes and masteries. You should be taking, if you're, say, an ADC, you should be taking probably 3 attack speed quints, generally speaking. I mean, you can do other things if you like, but it's pretty standard build to take 3 attack speed quints. So, you're going to have attack speed from other sources. You really need to build damage, generally speaking, unless you really benefit from the splash damage that Runen provides you. And the sort of where that happens is generally so rare. It's generally kind of not worth it. So
I'm really interested to see. I haven't actually tested it with Azir. So, Carrot, have you tested it with Azir?
No.
he has no splash though.
No, but
Would it
the auto
splash?
attacks. No, well, it possibly would,
is he
except
melee, or is he pseudo ranged? Is he like Kale, or is he just melee?
his soldiers are melee.
melee.
His personal
Okay,
attacks
he's
are
still
ranged.
melee. Yep. All right.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
then. I didn't even know that
And
one.
I mean, even apart from that, I mean, your soldiers pierce through anyway. So in a sense, they kind of do the same thing in doing AOE across the attack. So in some ways, it's kind of pointless anyway. But I mean, the other aspect of Ruinous Hurricane is you got to buy a recurve bow, which is a really expensive item that doesn't give you much. So unlike a bunch of other things that you've got these nice little things that build up towards it, recurve bow's pretty rubbish.
That's true.
Just they've patched they've changed all the items around that same sort of gold margin, and then recurve bow's just been left really, really awkwardly off. And for the same amount of gold, you're thinking, right, I can either get a Runan's Hurricane, I can buy a Static Shiv, I can buy a Phantom Dancer. I get one of those 3 for that gold, and you can get a PD or a Shiv for slightly cheaper. And they're going to give you crit, they're going to give you move speed, and they're going to give you attack speed anyway.
Yep.
So, especially on champion, like you mentioned, Ashe potentially as a gimmicky pick with the Runan's Hurricane, she gets better kite potential from a Static Shiv, which is why you're seeing everyone build Static Shivs at the moment, because we're running away from these big explosion comps. 80 carries need to dodge all these skill shots. It's 1% bonus move speed, so it's not really all that much compared to I think it's 1%.
It's
compared to a
6% for Static Shiv.
Yeah, and I think Phantom Dance is 5. So
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, with you. Yep.
yeah.
But
So
Phantom
it's
Dance allows
not all that
you.
much.
ignore unit collisions. So
yeah, so it's it's up to you. I mean, because of especially with whilst ever Infinity Edge is the main AD carry item, Runon's Hurricane will never be picked up.
Yeah.
When
definitely.
Ruin King is the main AD carry item, like it was earlier on, it is applicable, but it's very gimmicky. And when you're looking at the champions for, potential to use Runon's Hurricane, Vayne's Silverbolt's only applied on one target.
Yeah.
If she was able to AoE that
Man,
onto
that'd be
3
so
targets
freaking
and
broken.
maintain that,
Yeah.
she would A, be broken,
Yeah.
and then B, that would be the only AD carry that it would be actually viable as a solid item.
Yep.
And you weren't just gimmicky and just trying something very specific. There are very specific paths where it does work. Like you said, Varus. I prefer an AP Varus build because you want to be using the Blighted Quiver stacks for bursts. And that, again, still takes away from the burst potential. It's, again, another kind of gimmicky, just throw around fun build.
Yeah.
That's sort of out there.
And there's somebody pointing out in the chat, you could use it on Teemo because it puts his poison on everybody. But if you do that, because you're playing Teemo, you're a bad person and you should feel
Exactly,
bad.
that's true. That's
Friggin' Teemo, my gosh,
Just
don't
bad
play
at the
that
game.
little rat. Anyway.
I play DPS Teemo with Nash's 2 through Nans, Witsend.
Yeah, that's the ultimate
So troll.
team build.
So
you
troll.
do nothing the entire game until you eventually get items, and then you do moderately something.
Your team fight DPS though on that build is insane. I picked up 2
if you don't
in one day with that build.
If you don't get completely squashed immediately, if you just stand in the mid lane waiting for people to come to you, and then when the teams are on top of you, then you can explode.
Yeah.
Or if you don't go and kill yourself immediately afterwards because you played Teemo and you are a bad person and you should feel bad because it's Teemo. All right, I think we're about done. We've I think a couple of minutes left, so let's do some shout outs if we have any. Or actually, first off, Rankonius, where if somebody wants to sort of follow what you do, is there stuff you do during the week on a regular basis that they can follow you on?
Yep, absolutely. So first off, social media is obviously AV Rankonius. Just look it up. But the actual pages for both my Twitter and Facebook, facebook.com/Rankonius and @Rankonius.
Yep.
On Twitter. Also, don't forget to follow on Cast Oz. Obviously, again, the group that myself and Jubilate were founding. So that's @Cast Oz, spelled OZ, same as OzLoL Podcast, and @Casting Oz on Twitter. So
cool. And you do, don't you? Oh no, you don't cast the Gold Wars and stuff. You just help out with that. That's right.
No, the Oceanic Gaming Gold Wars and stuff I do actually help out with and cast as well. And also coming up, there will be obviously some stuff from League Bootcamp. There'll be a bunch of stuff coming up. And I actually have to catch up with Cameron Russell, who's the head over there, because he made a major announcement tonight. And I was on the train coming home from EV Expo finally and missed out on it all. But there is going to be some absolutely amazing stuff coming out of League Bootcamp. So it's probably a good idea to jump on and follow them as well, if you can.
Cool.
Excellent. Cool. Ralph, do you have any shout-outs before we finish up?
From me this week, I'd probably just say shout out to Spawny and Quainus. They're my two sort of duo/trio buddies, beginning in a few games of AIMRAM here and there when I've had the very brief chance. So shout outs to them.
Cool. I want to give a shout out firstly to Rankonius. Thanks for joining us on the show. It's been good having you. I want to give a shout out to Stephen Garstone, who is still traveling around. We're going to spend the next couple of weeks making fun of you, and because you may or may not listen to the podcast, I just want to say at this point,
new photo
we're having lots of
week.
fun at your expense. So thanks for that.
Oh my god, that photo!
I want to give a shout out to Voku because I didn't actually answer his question in the chat. Sorry, mate. I think that's it for shout outs. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. All right, well, make sure if you want to find out more about the show, ozlol.trinityforcepodcast.com. Make sure you check out that episode of T-Force Podcast that was yesterday morning. So it's out on it's already out, episode 200. And yes, Battle Arena will be back again this Thursday from 6 p.m. Australia. Oh, we'll have to figure out when that is because it's Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, so we're going to have to figure out. But around about 6 or 7 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Cool. And that's it for episode 57 of the OzLoL Podcast. I am Carrot Colossus. I've been joined by VespQT and Rankonius. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back again next week.
Bye. Wait.
Wait, what?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you're a champ.
Yes.